high time to join me today. This is Exceptional Women Show, and I am Mbuthi. Now, with the rising cases of indiscipline in our schools, and that sometimes, like in the recent past, can have very fatal results, one would wonder what goes through the mind of such an individual, and what blinds them to an extent that it cannot understand what the heinous acts can do, to their families and even to the rest of the society. So with me today is the psychologist who's here to help us answer this question and even more. Margaret Mbuthi. I almost said Mbuthi. And you just corrected me a while ago. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy and I'm glad to be here.
And I'm happy to have you. Yeah. So just a quick introduction about yourself and who you are and what you do.
Okay. I'm a psychologist. I'm a mother, and I am practicing. Mm-hmm. I'm a practicing psychologist. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So would you say some of these cases in the schools, let's just take what happened at Moi Girls High School just a couple of days ago. Mm-hmm. 9 girls lost their lives and a few others were seriously injured. And we are told that one of the students decided she didn't want to be in that school, and she had told her parents she didn't want to be in that school, but they insisted, I guess. And she went ahead. Maybe she didn't expect for it to have blown out to what it is right now, and maybe she wanted just to put a point across. So how is it that people out there can be on a lookout for a person who's troubled? How do you know somebody is troubled?
Thanks, Miriam. One of the things from what we hear about the particular student, and let's not just focus on her, but talk about maybe from a majority of others out there who are also struggling. What we hear is the particular one was suicidal. Mm-hmm. And incidentally, suicide is on the rise, mm-hmm. and especially among the youth. Mm-hmm. And the youth here, we are talking about and anyone from above 13 mm-hmm. all the way to young adulthood. Mm-hmm. The statistics are actually on the rise. Okay. If we look at what the World Health Organization gave us from a study in 2015, mm-hmm. the study talks about 800,000 people dying annually.
Wow. From suicide?
Yes, from suicide. Mm-hmm. They talk about that basically translates to about one person dying every 40 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Through suicide, yes. Mm-hmm. And they're also telling us, the statistics are telling us that in Kenya, you're talking about 6 people in every 100 would die of suicide. And suicide is considered currently the 17th leading cause of death, mm-hmm. again according to WHO. And it is 17th, and in Kenya in particular, and among the youth, it is the 2nd leading cause of death from the motor vehicle accidents.
Wow.
So if you're talking about 6 people in every 100,000, then you can see the prevalence that we are talking about. It's quite high. The other thing is when it comes to the suicide rates for young people 15 to 19 years, 1 in every 10,000 will have contemplated suicide at one point or another. Chances are that we'll also have 1 who has attempted, may not have succeeded to complete it, but may have contemplated. Then between the 12 years and 16, 10% of those who are boys will have contemplated suicide, and 20% are girls.
Is there a reason why it's more on the girls' side?
Girls will be, the numbers will be higher in thinking about it, in contemplating, but the rates are lower in actually carrying out. So when you're looking at who is likely to complete it, boys are likely to complete it much. And the other reason that explains why boys have a higher success rate, and we are seeing higher success in quote unquote, is the mode they use to commit suicide is more lethal.
So that
Meaning
means
it's
girl-
more
girls.
severe.
Yeah.
It's more severe. They're going to look for a way that will actually finish it. Well, girls will probably look for a way that is less painful, and as a result, they're likely to get rescued.
So in such cases, is it because somebody wants to draw attention to something they feel is not being addressed? Because if somebody, they want to die but not really, I'm hoping somebody will come and rescue me and things like that, that means they're troubled and they're trying to draw attention to something, the society or the parents or... Yeah.
There's a bit of a cry for attention. That's there. That's true. But then when it comes to suicide, we don't take chances. Whether it's a cry for attention or not, you treat it with the seriousness that it deserves, because then you're not sure who is going to complete it or who is actually going to execute it. So you want to treat it with the seriousness it deserves. Now, the thing about it is, if it was a cry for attention and they didn't get it, they can actually live to make good their threat. If it was a cry for attention, or even if it was someone who was really serious contemplating it, and they get help at the right time, there is an intervention at the right time, then we are saying we are likely to save someone. So the most important thing here is, do they get help? Does the cry get attention? Does it get noticed? Is there an intervention, and a good intervention? Is there a good support system so that it is not ignored? Then the other thing, when you're thinking about suicide and you're thinking about young people, and especially the adolescent, if we can go back to the case now, this is someone in the adolescence. Adolescence has its own challenges. And part of the adolescent challenges and some of the symptoms or behavioral symptoms that adolescents are going to manifest when they are going through that phase can easily be confused and mistaken with some of the behavioral symptoms for suicide, for someone who is suicidal. For example, adolescents are known to withdraw. They're known to, have and experience the mood swings. And those will still be the same symptoms that you'll be looking out for. For someone who is suicidal, you expect to see like a change in, eating patterns and sleeping patterns. Again, those are things that can easily be mistaken because of the developmental stage at which they are at. The most important thing here is, for whoever is with the children, whether they are the teachers or whether they are the parents or whoever the caregivers are you able to pick the extreme? Are you able to tell that this go beyond what we expect of a normal adolescent going through this? Then the other thing that comes to mind, this is a Form 1. What are some of the other challenges that are characteristic of Form 1 students? Maybe this girl wasn't in a boarding school in primary school, then all of a sudden she finds herself in a boarding school.
Someplace.
So that basically means you're away from home, maybe not even the freedom aspect, there could be that, but you're away from home. You're all by yourself. And the thing about Form 1, whoever takes them through a process of inducting them and orienting them and preparing them, and so they're likely to suffer an adjustment issue. Transitioning from primary to a secondary school, you're being transitioned away from home. Were you well prepared for this transition? And at the same time, the transition is also characterized by another developmental transition from being a child into an adolescent now and headed into a young adulthood, and the challenges that come with it.
Oh, wow. So just in reference to that case, and you mentioned some characteristics of a troubled child or suicidal, or sometimes can similar to those of adolescents. But this girl, she had attempted suicide twice. And was that not a red flag enough to make the school or the parents act on it? Or who is to blame here?
I wouldn't place blame on any, and at the same time we are not going to exonerate anyone, because then we also must remember that suicide is also correlated. There's a very high relationship between suicide and a mental health issue. So if this girl was severely stressed, deeply stressed, she probably headed into a depression, and there is a big relationship. We need to understand, for anyone to say, I want to commit suicide, whether it's a cry for attention or not, there must be an underlying issue. So what was the problem? Did the problem just happen in high school? Or was it something that was there before and was not attended to? And for her to have said that I'm going to commit suicide, that was enough. That was enough reason for anyone to stop what they were doing, the teachers to stop what they were doing, and the parents to stop what they were doing and reach out to the girl. Because then again, one of the other things you realize is that for those who have attempted once, they're likely to complete it the next time they're going to attempt it. And one of the other behavioral things you're going to notice for people who are suicidal is the preoccupation with thoughts about suicide. They are going to engage in acts that actually expose them or probably make them vulnerable. If you check in their writing, there will be suicidal material or content that you're likely to find. So if she said, I'm going to do something once and twice, then we are right to say someone ignored or someone just didn't pay attention.
She actually attempted.
And she actually attempted. The story says, well, from what you hear, that she actually attempted. So maybe there was, it wasn't taken as seriously as it needed. Yes.
Okay. So why is it important to have a psychologist in schools? Because I doubt a lot of these schools have somebody.
Incidentally, the Ministry of Education guideline, there is a counseling department in every school. The challenge is that the teachers in charge of that department are also, they may not be qualified in that regard, but they also have a teaching load. Then you realize, where is the priority? Is it in counseling, which is not measurable, which is not done yet? Or is it my teaching load, which is assessed and examined at the end of the semester? Why do we need that department? Very, 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 very critical and very important. You're talking about having hundreds of young people in an institution, coming from diverse backgrounds, coming with different issues and dynamics, and needing mentorship and guidance. It's one of the key departments in any learning institution. And let's look at what is happening at the universities. Universities have a very, very well-established counseling department. The university counselors don't teach. That's all they do. I wish we could borrow a leaf from what is happening at the university and replicate. Yes, and replicate.
And it's doable.
It is.
So some of these cases, because that was isolated, but a lot of these cases, are they sometimes inspired by trauma or even peer pressure?
If you read about the psychology of children who kill, one of the things you realize is that they have a history of abuse. And that's just the basic and the underlying thing in most of them. And abuse here may not necessarily mean sexual abuse. It could be emotional abuse, it could be neglect, it could be physical, it could be anything. And so, because this child grew up, or this particular individual grew up in an environment that was very hostile, they lost their sense of, they don't feel like they have a sense of power. And they are so bitter and so bitter with the society. A child would want to hit back, but they wouldn't hit back because then chances are that the abuser is a person they depend on. So it's a person of influence. So one of the things they will try and do is, how do they vent out? They're so hurt on the inside. No one seems to pay attention to their heart. No one is trying to help them do that. So as a way of trying to deal with it, then you realize they're likely to do something that is also going to hurt not just themselves but also someone else, as a way of trying to feel it's level now. I mean, I've been the recipient, so but finally now I can also inflict pain. So there's usually an issue of the power struggle. And children generally by nature will not kill, will not burn a school. There has to be something. There has to be an underlying issue. And half the time are the issues we see, are the issues we hear, but we sweep them under the carpet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to have more of this conversation. And parents out there, please pay attention. Some of these cases, you can see the red flags, and when you suspect that something is wrong with your child, sometimes it's good to just have a conversation, try to find out.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that when we come back, so don't go too far. We'll be back in a bit. Welcome back. This is Exceptional Women Show, and in case you just joined me, my guest today is a psychologist, and she's here to help us understand some of these cases that has been happening in the schools, in discipline cases that sometimes results can be very, very fatal, like in the case we saw at Moi Girls High School in Nairobi and other schools across the country. So now, Margaret, welcome back.
Thank you.
So there are a number of contributing factors to some of these cases. Tell me how parenting comes to play.
You know, we say that the first learning institution for any child is at home. Before they get to be taught anything else, the learning takes place at home. Today we are seeing a generation of parents who are not available for their children. They're not accessible, they're too busy, they're out there. And for me, the most worrying is they're not talking to their children. And because you're not available, you don't even get to understand who your child is. You don't even get to know who their friends are. You don't get to know generally who are they, what do they want in life, what are they struggling with in life. And as they grow and get to the preteen or the pre-adolescent stage and the adolescent stage, one of the things that adolescents want is a sense of acceptance and a sense of belonging.
And they struggle with that sometimes.
And they really struggle with that as they're also trying to find and to form their identity. So if this child never got validated at home, didn't get the love that they needed, doesn't have the stability that this child needed, that child is vulnerable to follow anyone out there and just to flow with it, and allows themselves to be defined by what their peers will say, but not really who they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how about family instability? When back at home it's not very stable, maybe mom and dad are not, you know.
And it is not every child, Miriam, who grows up in a family where there's probably separation and divorce who doesn't turn out right. Yeah. We know we know very many who have turned out right. What is really, really important for a child, and especially back home, do they feel safe in that environment? Are they feeling secure? Are they protected? Are they feeling that it doesn't matter what I go and meet out there, I have a safe fallback position at home? And it doesn't matter, yes, and it doesn't matter it's a single parent family, what the child is, consistency, stability, and a sense of safety, and for them to feel accepted as who they are. And not conditional acceptance, because then I'm not an A student, so I'm not a very good child, you're not so proud of me, but unconditional acceptance of who I am, and with my limited capacities, just accept me as who I am and help me, build me to be who I can be. Yes.
Does media influence have a stake in this?
Do you know that generation that we are talking about? And because the parents are not available, every one of them has a gadget.
Yeah.
And in the absence of having a human being to educate, to emulate, and to model, and to talk to, and to give me that personal warmth, where else do they turn
and even to monitor what you go
and to monitor what you're doing,
yeah.
and to just let me know that it's okay to have a bad day, but tomorrow will be a different day, and to tell me that what I'm going through as an adolescent is normal. In the absence of that, then we go to the other option that we know. It's the internet, it's the media, and we will get whatever piece of possible information that is available there, whether it works for me or not. And that's now how the media come to parent and to fill in the gap that the human beings who are the parents are not filling in the gap, and the ones who are not modeling what this child wants, then we will go to look for options and explanations to some of these things. And that's how they get to the internet, and they will not get the correct information.
Okay. So what are the dangers of being a permissive parent?
One, there are no boundaries. When we demolish, and when the boundaries are, and by the boundaries here we mean, the simple do's and the don'ts at home. If children are not taught that there are boundaries, and simple things such as you can't do that, then they grow up not knowing their boundaries. They grow up not knowing they need to learn to self-regulate themselves. Then they go up into an institution where the don'ts are probably much more, the list is much longer than what you can do. They won't know how to live with that.
And if you're breaking the rules at home, when you go out there, you're going to break the law. And when you break the law, it's different.
Exactly. And then again here, this is an institution. We have rules. We have the way we live. We can't let you just be who you want to be. But remember, this child is coming from a system where I can do anything that I want to do. So if we don't teach them to maintain those boundaries and to respect them, then what we are doing, even when we are talking about child rights and everything else, then the one good lesson that we are not teaching is that rights comes with responsibilities. Yes.
You talked about child rights, and I remembered my son the other day. He was dressing, and he was dressing in his room. So I barged in, and he's like, "Mom, you're abusing my rights." I'm like, "I'm sorry." So they know about their rights, but they don't know it comes with responsibilities.
It comes with responsibilities.
Although,
yes.
I was wrong. I should have knocked. So how do we teach our children to control their emotions and react to things intelligently?
It's not, Miriam, it's not a lesson that will say, let's sit down and today we are going to teach about how you're going to self-regulate and how you're going to control your emotions. These are lessons learned and taught throughout their life. How do you teach a 2-year-old that you can't throw a tantrum in a supermarket? Yeah. And even if you throw that tantrum, if that what you wanted, we're not going to give it to you, no matter how much of how big of a manipulation you do. So how do we teach them over time, and to let them know that it's not just about you, but it's also about other family members. What you do here also affects everyone else around us and around them. And that's how they grow to be emotionally sensitive to the people that they're living with. And that's how they grow to know that I will not always have my way. I can sacrifice, but for the sake and for the good of everyone. Yes.
Okay. So can failures say in school? Because sometimes, we insist you have to get an A, you have to get a B. And sometimes not all kids are gifted like that. So when they fail a couple of times and in their exams or in their studies, this sometimes can result to them having a low self-esteem that can make them feel a bit demotivated. and so they react by adopting some antisocial behaviors. Is this true?
It is true to an extent, in the sense that it's not every child who is an A child. And even the C child has a lot of good in them and a lot of other potentials in them. If we only focus on the A and we don't focus on any other talent that the child has,
It's
because
gifted in, yeah.
whatever they are gifted in, if you picked what I am good at and you brought it out and you nurtured that, then you're building my self-esteem. And now the C will not really bring me down as much as because I have something else that I am good at. We need to shift the focus from just an A and an A and an A and an A to also look at what are our children also gifted in. In this particular case, we're also saying, if this child said, this school is not good enough for me, and a lot of other children will say that, is it because the school is really not good?
Yeah.
Or is it a school that was the parents' choice? Or is it also possible the child went there and just realized I can't cope? Maybe the school is too large for this particular child. Maybe the academic pressure was just too much. Before we even begin to say that they're just being crybabies, they're just being adolescent and throwing tantrums, can we stop and ask ourselves, what is the problem?
So blaming and punishing the students sometimes is not always the right strategy.
It's not, because then when you blame, you're already judging me. And you probably haven't given me an opportunity to give my side of the story. So we need to move from that. We need now to start talking. Why don't you want this? Why don't you think this school is not good enough for you? What kind of school are you looking for? And we also need to help them know that you will not always work in the company that you dream, for whatever reason. So if you can't get there, is there another option that you can take, another choice B that can still make you who you want to be? But on the other hand, we also do not want a scenario where the children would just say, I don't like it,
And then that's it.
and then they have their
Supposed to
way.
give in to their demands.
Yes, and then they have their way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So just before we finish, from where you sit, are our schools safe? Or are our children safe in these schools we take them to?
I think the issue of safety, Miriam, is relative. If I'm talking from a child protection point of view, I would say when you're thinking about safety in school, it's not just the physical infrastructure that outsiders cannot come into school. I'll think about, is this child, what are the possible likely issues in terms of child abuse that this child can be exposed to? Is the institution safe in the sense that there are no drugs that are coming in? Is the institution safe in the sense that these children have people they can talk to when they have problems and when they are going through a crisis? Like psychologists, is the school system open to feedback and to dialogue with the children? Every school has provided for the physical safety. Have they provided for the psychological safety, for the emotional safety? Are they safe from any other form of abuse? For me, that would be the key thing, because the gates are there, the doors are there, and everything else is there. So if this school was safe, where did the student get a matchbox from? And it's not something sold in the canteen. If this school is really, and like all the other schools are really safe, where are the drugs coming in? That basically means there are people in the institution who are helping the student bring in drugs. So then those children, from a child protection point of view, are not safe in that aspect.
Okay.
Yes.
I know parents right now at home are scratching their heads and trying to figure out, is my child safe? And also some of these requirements by the Ministry of Education about safety requirements. A lot of these schools, I doubt they meet even the basic minimum
Threshold.
Yeah.
And
So maybe it's time the Ministry of Education had started to roll, because our kids must be safe.
I'll say this, the guidelines are there, the standards are there, and they are not new. They are standards that every head of a school has been oriented to. For me, I'll say it's about the parents, it's about the board of management of that school, it's about the Parents Teachers Association. It's simply a failure to implement the laid down guidelines and the regulations. And also the parents, do they really try to find out? It's a good school, it can be any other good school because it gives you the grades. Is it about the grades, or is it also... Yeah. Yeah, and then you have so many A's that you get at the end of the 4 years, so but you leave a child who is depressed. Yes.
A child who can cope the rest of the world. All right, Margaret Mbuthi, it was a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you too, it's a pleasure.
And hopefully next time you come back, we'll talk about something I've never understood. I'm a parent, my son is 10 years old. How someone takes a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old and take them to a boarding school. I've never understood that. So maybe next time when you come, from a professional point of view, you can help this mother out.
All right. Okay,
and others
thank you.
Out there.
Okay.
But thank you for coming today.
Thank you too. It was a pleasure.
Okay.
Okay.
And until next time, please make sure your kids are safe out there. Parents, find out, are your children safe in the schools that you take them to? I am Mbuthi, and this has been Exceptional Women Show. I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.